Hello and welcome to the Hash. Happy Monday. Welcome to your work week. Let's get this thing started. I'm Zach Seward. I'm joined today by George, by Jen, and by Naomi. And Naomi, you're going to start us off today with our lead story. What do you got? Let's do this thing. Oh,
Jen,
I'm sorry.
It's actually me, Zach. Come on.
Jen, all you. Take it away. What do you got?
I like your CoinDesk shirt. All right. Big news out of Twitter today. CEO Jack Dorsey is stepping down from his position at the head of the company. He said in an email to employees, which he also tweeted, that CTO Parag Agrawal will be taking his place. Now, in that same email, he brought up the talk around the importance of companies being founder-led and said that he believes that the notion is severely limiting. So, Zach, I'm going to toss this right off to you. Do you agree with him? I tend to agree with him. I think that founders, companies are often their babies, right? And then they grow and they become these enormous things, and then it's really hard for them to let go. So I think this is quite an interesting move for Jack. I'm excited to see where he goes next, but what did you make of his comments in that email?
Well, it's big news. I mean, Jack Dorsey is a big figure in the crypto space for sure, notably for his Bitcoin advocacy specifically. So the fact that he's stepping down from Twitter, I think is quite interesting. And there's already been a lot of speculation as to whether or not he'll be focusing more on his Bitcoin efforts, whether through Square or some of the other initiatives that have spun out from his corporate empire. So interesting to see the change of pace here. Also interesting to see the market reaction to this news. Twitter stock was up on this news, which I wouldn't have necessarily have guessed. Either that's bullish on not multitasking, or just someone has been leading a charge for different leadership atop this social media network. So interesting to see. I'm really curious to see if his plans change. CoinDesk was told by a source at Square that his plans there will remain the same, but it's going to be interesting to see if his remit expands to more of the financial services stuff that he seems passionate about. But yeah, I'm going to toss this up to George.
Yeah, I want to say something briefly before I think Naomi wants to jump in, because I can just see her getting ready to go off on this. I'd first say that Jack is doing it. I know I'm speculating here, but I think he's going to be focusing more full-time on Bitcoin. So somewhat telegraphed when he said at Bitcoin 2020 in Miami that if he wasn't working on Twitter plus Square, then he'd be working on Bitcoin. The fact that he was a CEO of two companies at the same time was insane to me. And Jen, to your point about being founder-led and standing on its own, I'd make a really good argument that Jack, in the eyes of the shareholders and in the eyes of those who want to, exploit customers, he was probably getting in the way of that because he didn't want to make a lot of moves that I'd say a lot more mainstream people would have liked him to make. To that, I want to throw a alley-oop up to Naomi so she can go off on this.
All right. Well, I mean, your comment about he's the CEO of two companies, and that's crazy. Meanwhile, Elon Musk's like, hold my beer. I'm about to start my 57th. It's going to be incredibly successful. I mean, it's interesting, his choice. So in the email that he tweeted out, he is talking about how this new CEO is the best choice, why he's the best choice. And yet we have evidence that he may not be the best person to promote free speech. So there's a tweet that came out by James Torrado, and he says Jack Dorsey steps down as Twitter CEO, replaced by CTO Parag Agrawal. Censorship will get worse. Agrawal, in November 2020 interview, said, "Our role is not to be bound by the First Amendment, focusing on thinking about free speech, but thinking about how times have changed." That does not bode well at all. That's kind of a terrifying statement to say, like, let's not be bound by this whole notion of free speech, this silly little thing, which is the basis of a free society. Times have changed apparently, and he's there to embrace this new authoritarian bent when it comes to free speech. So I'm not that bullish on the direction of Twitter, given this news and given Agrawal's comments in the past. And also, I mean, it brings up questions to me because we know that Jack was really leading the charge when it comes to a decentralized Twitter variant. He was really about the free speech. He knew that centralized platforms get in the way of itself in a very famous hearing last year. he said that, he doesn't think that Twitter should have control over what people say. He doesn't think the politicians should either. And so he's focusing on this decentralized effort of building this new sort of decentralized era of Twitter-like products. And so it's interesting, like, is he going to be still continuing that? Because in order to interface with something like Twitter, you kind of need to have inroads into Twitter. And he's apparently sticking around on the board until like May, he said. And then he's leaving completely. He's not even going to stay on the board. So he will have no say in kind of guiding that process. It makes me wonder whether there's going to come this, alternative app, or whether there will be something that can plug into like a Twitter API. So it's just kind of an interesting turn of events that I didn't expect at all. But Jen, I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, I know that Jack said in his tweet that this was completely his decision, but I just wonder how much of his own decision this was. We talk about him being the CEO being the CEO of two companies. And the article said that last year, stakeholders were already trying to get him to step down because they didn't think that he could lead two public companies. And just when we look at the profile of the CTO who's stepping into the role, I also wonder how stakeholders felt about Jack's vision for the future. It seems a little contradictory to what Twitter has built. So I really wonder about the motivations there. I wonder, and maybe we'll see some more information come out. But moving on to Zach, I think
it's me.
George, sorry, we're so bad at this today. We had 2 days off and we can't host a show anymore.
And I'm going to you for the next story.
Happy Monday, everybody. So my news is about BTFD, buying the dip. I hope we all survived the bear market of Thanksgiving 2021. I think we all did, since we're all here. So everyone's favorite Bitcoin skeptic turned Bitcoin hyperbull, Michael Saylor, announced that his company MicroStrategy bought even more Bitcoin. So 7,000 Bitcoins for 414-ish million in cash during its fiscal fourth quarter. Side note, the former IB analyst in me is shaking at the idea of having to do a model with a November fiscal year end. They purchased that for roughly $59,000 of Bitcoin, which means that MicroStrategy now holds more than 121,000 Bitcoins, which is the steady march to 1% of total supply is coming up. I think the march is continuing. And in similar news, El Salvador also bought 100 more Bitcoin, as the Salvadoran president literally tweeted that the country had purchased coins at a discount, which is kind of funny given they're paying market price. But my takeaway from all of this is that the firsts in the Bitcoin world are not capitulating. MicroStrategy was the first major non-crypto related public company, a lot of qualifiers there, to put Bitcoin on its balance sheet. And El Salvador was the first nation to adopt Bitcoin. And there might be something to be said here about an ego play from both Michael Saylor and Nayib Bukele. But the conviction is still there. And to that, speaking of conviction, I want to pick on my most convicted friend again. Naomi, what do you think?
So I just feel like these stories come out and it's like, oh, Michael Saylor got into more debt in his company to buy more Bitcoin. And it happens over and over again. Like, it was awesome when MicroStrategy first got involved. It's awesome that he has such conviction. It's such an interesting play for him because his company is so intrinsically tied to the value of Bitcoin at this point that it's hard to say it's anything other than a Bitcoin stock, because as soon as the price moves, the value of that company is just catapulted in either direction, which is an interesting move if you take into consideration the needs of shareholders and why they might have invested in this company in the first place. I'm sure they didn't anticipate that it would be so intrinsically tied to Bitcoin. But interesting point that you brought up about these big first kind of movers getting into the space and they're not capitulating, and it's like I don't know. It's like you've got this guy who's like putting his company into so much debt to buy more and more Bitcoin. And then you've got this country that's mandating the use of Bitcoin. Like, I don't know. It's cool that El Salvador is buying Bitcoin. I'll grant them that. I really like that they're pushing Bitcoin forward. Obviously, I don't like the compulsion element of it. I think it could have been done voluntarily, but it is still cool to see Bitcoin start to flourish there. I just feel like this story is like, it's happened again. All right. Yeah. And it's going to happen again as well. I don't know. Zach probably has a better take on this than I do. These stories exhaust me. Like, do they exhaust you, Zach?
A little bit. Yeah. I think it is good to note this, the ever growing number of Bitcoins that to me are in the Scrooge McDuck vault, in which Michael Saylor jumps in headfirst every damn day. So for me, it's always good to note these. But yeah, at this point, it's not news. It's sort of just more procedural, right? It's like, okay, you know, this really like moved the Bitcoin market significantly, you know, late last year, right? And we're sort of have become inured to it a little bit. But it's certainly worth noting, and it's certainly worth noting that one company in Northern Virginia that previously had been a business services company is now, again, as George pointed out, marching its way toward owning 1% of the Bitcoin in circulation. So I think it's pretty interesting to see that this, again, this conviction, this obsession, this drive to hold more and more BTC does not appear to be waning from this company and from Michael Saylor specifically. So yeah, I don't know what more there is to say. I don't know at what point like the threshold gets you know, such that it's not worth remarking anymore. But it's always fun to see that number go up, honestly. So I'll leave it there. George, you got any final thoughts?
I want Jen to give her final thought because I saw her hand a couple times.
All right, do it, Jen.
Thanks, George. Just like
I got you.
Thank you. It's actually a question for you. So every time I hear the El Salvador news, I get fearful over what is going to happen when we're in a bear market. And I talked about this on the show last week. And it's the same when I hear MicroStrategy news. They are buying debt. They are going into debt to buy Bitcoin. And given your background, like what's your take on MicroStrategy and El Salvador when we hit a bear market?
Yeah, it's an incredibly interesting thing that MicroStrategy in particular has convinced institutional investors to issue high yield junk bond debt in order to buy Bitcoins, because in that scenario, they're implicitly taking the credit risk there. So the fact that, you know, these big institutions that give out bonds that yield 6% are giving them to MicroStrategy in order for them to buy Bitcoin is just absolutely crazy. I don't know if they really understand what would happen in a bear market, given how tied MicroStrategy's market cap is. It's scary. I don't really want to think about it.
Ooh, we'll be there.
At least I'm not the only one scared.
All right, folks. Big news today on the Hash. We have a quiz. Are you guys ready for this? This is a break and then some. Let me tell you all about it. All right, so crypto's on the rise, but crypto knowledge, still kind of iffy, a little bit basic among the general population. So that's why in November we've been doing Crypto Literacy Month. It's an initiative that aims to help promote greater consumer education about crypto and Bitcoin so you can make better decisions about digital assets and your financial future. Okay, so now we're nearing the end of this thing, and we're going to test what you've learned. And this is the quiz that we're all going to take today. The quiz question is, what is a non-fungible token, aka an NFT? Those are the options there. I'm going to read them out loud. A token that represents a unique item that can be mutually exchanged for other unique assets. B, a token that represents a unique item that can be owned by multiple parties concurrently. C, a token that represents digital ownership of unique items that cannot be mutually exchanged for one another. Or D, a token that represents digital ownership of unique items that are exclusively collectible. There's no E option. All of the above is not an option. So think about that stuff. The answer to that question will be at the end of today's show. Stick with us. We're taking a break. Talk to you soon.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to The Hash. And we're going to dive into peak silliness in the crypto space. So we all know that the Omicron variant has emerged in the news. It is a new variant of COVID. And interestingly enough, there is a coin by the same name And apparently on this news, it spiked in price while the rest of the crypto market was crashing. Some are calling this peak irrationality, a case where cryptocurrency rallying just because its parent blockchain coincidentally shares the same name as the new COVID variant. It has nothing to do with COVID, by the way. This is just like a DeFi project. You can like stake coins, kind of like an interesting basket of assets situation. And yet people see this name and they're like, I'm going to buy into this because I know the price is going to go up, because we've been talking about this a lot in the news. I'm going to throw this to the group for your take on this silliness. I mean, when I see stories like this, it makes me think of like blockchain iced tea, when you had like the a company adding blockchain to their name, and then suddenly the share price just skyrockets. This is very reminiscent of that sort of a thing. But Zach, I'll throw it to you to start off with.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just a silly one. I don't know. Like someone was like Googling Omicron and like, oh, wait, there's a crypto coin. I'm definitely going to buy that crypto coin. Sweet. I don't know. I don't know what the thought process is here, but it is pretty funny to see all these markets move on sentiment and half-baked ideas. So I don't know. It does sort of speak to maybe a broader facet of these markets that some of it is done for the lulz, but I don't know. Beyond that, it is indeed pretty silly. But let's see if the Omicron crypto rally can continue, if they can become the next great DeFi powerhouse. But I don't know. I'm not holding my breath on that one. I'll toss it up to George.
Yeah, as the sole representative of one of 20 million Greek speakers in the world, I'd like to say that the Omicron variant is the way we should be pronouncing that. I'm going to try to get that onto MSM. Let's all
adopt Greek accents. It's imperative.
Omicron.
Yes, it is Omicron. And so to that, I want to get onto the fact that value is meaningless. Nothing makes sense anymore. And I'm kind of here for it. Kind of. There's a level of absurdity here that was preempted by irresponsible monetary policy, irresponsible fiscal policy decisions. And I'm not saying that there's a direct line from basement interest rates to random token that does whatever and it goes hyperbolic. But there is definitely a dotted line that goes from basement interest rates to investors looking for a financial return by taking on more risk to random tokens going hyperbolic because they're named Omicron. Naomi?
So they say that, there's wisdom in the markets, and we're kind of looking to the markets wherever they move. It's like, okay, that's the smart play. There's so many takes on that. So first of all, you got to compare short-term and long-term markets, right? So the smart money, honestly, maybe they did buy into this because they were like, I understand meme culture. I understand what is going to happen, now that this is in the news, that this token is absolutely going to go crazy, because I know there's a bunch of people out there who are meme tokening every single day and will see this and they will buy in. So perhaps it is true, like it seems irrational, but perhaps the smart money was like, I'm diving into this. The question is, what about long term? Do we see any smart money saying like, this is for the long term? I'm going to stick around in this one and hold my bags, because I think that Omicron, however you pronounce it. It was very Russian. It was like Omicron. Wow. Because they think that, this is like a long-term play. Like, I don't think anyone thinks this is a long-term play. I think everyone realizes this is what it is, which is internet meme culture at its finest. People piling on because this is the new thing we're doing today. This is today's game and people are here for it. But keep in mind, if you're rushing into something like this, don't be the one left with the bags. If you want to play this game, there's tremendous risk associated with it. You can't always time the market well. They can fall out from underneath you super, super fast before you can even get your bets in. But Zach, I'll throw to you. I think I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, I was just saying, I think it's a great point. In the short term, it's really hard to distinguish smart money from dumb money, which speaks to the ever true nature of the midwit meme. If you don't know that meme, look it up. And it's and also just the admonishment to just be careful out there. Really important. Like, look at Shiba Inu, right? We were talking about Shiba Inu. It's down like 60% from its all-time highs. So if you were buying at peak peak mania about Shiba Inu, maybe you learned that lesson that maybe getting into peak Omicron might be dangerous. But all right, let's change
Omicron,
gears.
Russian accent.
Omicron.
Close enough.
All right. All right, let's switch things. Let's go to the world of crime. We're going to talk about Moshe Hogeg, who's an Israeli crypto entrepreneur who's done a number of projects in the past out of Tel Aviv, was arrested, I think, last week on a slew of charges, some of which were pretty hairy. And 7 other people were arrested in connection with that, one of whom was Yaron Shalem. He now works for Celsius as CFO, but it's almost certain that the reason that he was hauled in by the authorities was related to his past work with one of Hogeg's former firms. So it's good to be clear about that. Even though he is the Celsius CFO, it's likely linked to his past involvement with Moshe Hogeg. He was rumored to have been arrested and released. According to a source, he was also, not according to a source. According to a source, before they tweeted it, he was suspended from his job until further information becomes made available. So this is unfolding. This is a bit of a juicy story in the Israeli local press, and it's something that certainly touches the crypto world and some of the networks that exist in the crypto world that may or may not be doing unseemly things. So I'm going to throw this to George. George, when you see a headline such as this, what are your initial thoughts? What should we be thinking of here?
Yeah, my initial thought is that it's great that great that he was arrested, not in conjunction with something he has done at Celsius, given the amount of people that use Celsius and have put their assets into the Celsius ecosystem. It doesn't really help given the amount of heat that Celsius gets from those who don't love the rehypothecation of their assets. A lot of people claim that Celsius takes in Bitcoin, and then the reason that they can give you these high interest rates is because they're lending it out to others at 1 to 10 reserve ratios, which is just remaking the legacy banking system that these kind of companies are trying not to do. I'd say that it's bad that another person is being tied up in the world of crime and has to do with crypto, just because the perception of everyone thinking that crypto is for criminals. It's somewhat of reputational risk now. I have nothing more to say there. Naomi, I'd love to toss it to you.
Yeah, just going to echo the same point that it's the last thing Celsius needs right now with all of the heat that they're under from various regulatory agencies across the United States. They've had cease and desists in multiple states, and they probably don't appreciate being tied in with all this controversy. He was immediately suspended, and Celsius did confirm that they verified there are no assets that were misplaced or mishandled. So it seems that nothing that he did at Celsius was untoward. It was all past employment. I just wanted to bring up something on the tail end of your point, George, about like interest rates and rehypothecation. I mean, this isn't something that I think people should knee-jerk be against. It's this strange culture that's evolved in crypto where they're like, this is a thing you can never do. The problem that people should have with that happening in traditional banking system is that written on our banknotes, it says that these are redeemable immediately. That's the issue, because that's actually fraudulent. Because if you all, to redeem this immediately, there wouldn't be enough to give you your reserves. And so there's this idea that, it should say like, this is a credit note. You understand that it's not there in a vault waiting for you. So it's kind of like this semantic thing that people should be against. But instead, this has evolved since the Rothbard days to become something different. It's now become like we can never rehypothecate loans. I think if you look at the crypto space, it's a great example of how interest rates work, because interest rates are intrinsically tied to specific markets. If it's a super risky asset, if what you're doing is super risky, you're probably going to get like 40% APY, 100% APY, whatever. It's directly linked to the risk you're taking. Obviously, if Celsius is rehypothecating assets, then they will be able to charge higher because you are taking a risk. I think it's just important that people not knee-jerk against that idea, but they understand fundamentally the risks that they're getting involved with when they deal with a company that does rehypothecate assets. If you're willing to take that risk, if you're willing to do that in exchange for 20% interest, that's awesome. And that's totally according to like your own risk tolerance there. So I did want to make that point because I have seen crypto culture sort of like evolve away from what Rothbard was initially saying with that. But Jen, I'll throw to you because I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, I was going to really say almost the same thing you said about regulators already
you wanted to talk about
watching
Rothbard too?
Celsius. No, at the beginning part. The beginning part.
I
know. About regulators really closely watching Celsius. I think this is going to give them an excuse to get back into Celsius's books and go through with a fine-tooth comb. So I think that it is sad that this is related to Celsius. So we'll see what happens. But Zach, back to you.
Back to me. Okay, we're doing a quiz, guys.
Quiz
We have to get to
time.
the answer of the quiz. Okay, it's a quiz show. Welcome back to the Hash Quiz Show. That is the answer. Oh, sorry. The question is, what
can
is an
I just
NFT?
debate
And
that?
the answer is, hold on, I have to say the answer. The answer
Mhm.
is C, a token that represents digital ownership of unique items that cannot be mutually exchanged for one another, thus non-fungible. All right, Naomi, over to you for a disputation.
Well, so the wording is confusing because it says cannot be mutually exchanged for one another. So I presume that's referring to the token, but the way it's worded perhaps should have been put where the token part is. So the tokens, can be exchanged, and the tokens are unique. The digital ownership of a unique item, I'm going to push back against, because I could have digital ownership of an item that's the exact same JPEG that someone else's digital item of that same JPEG exists, and you hash that JPEG, it's the exact same hash, like it's the exact same digital item. So I push back against the idea that it's digital ownership of a unique item. I would say it's a unique token that represents digital ownership of an item, and the token can be mutually exchanged for one another. So I have beef with this. I don't know, George, if you have any take.
No, that's church right there. Preach.
Preach.
I agree with you.
Preach.
There we
All
go.
right,
That's
well,
what.
There we go.
That's it. Diving into
Take
this.
it
We're talking
over.
about this so we can all mull these definitions
doing-
and learn.
we're doing- it's
And
a
that's what this is
Do we
all
get half
about.
credit,
together.
Zach?
It's
Did we
multiple
get credit back?
choice. It's multiple
Are those
choice. Okay,
donuts
this
in the
isn't an
corner?
essay. This isn't an essay
Donuts.
question response. Where's the donuts? Those are the coins. That's what they look like.
Those are
You didn't know
coins.
that?
They look like donuts.
Come on, dude. All right,
Those
anyway,
are some fungible
check out-
tokens.
go check out cryptoliteracy.org to get all your quiz action on. Let us know how you do. Let us know in the comments. I don't think there's any prizes involved, but let us know if you ace
Everyone
that
was
test.
saying B,
We're
so
happy
no
to
one
chop
actually
it
got
up.
it in our chat. No one said C, but I
Uh-oh.
disagree that C
No.
was correct. So I think you're all
Also-
correct in the chat. You all got it. Well done.
When the picture
All
got
right,
bigger,
good
it no
times.
longer looked like
It was deep.
donuts. Just FYI, I'm not
We like
completely
donuts.
blind.
Donuts are good. We like the
Yeah.
donuts. All right. Thanks so much. That's it for the hash today. We'll probably be back tomorrow. It'll be Tuesday.
Probably.
Good times.
See you guys.
ya. I'm Zach. We got George. We got Naomi. We got Jen. We love you.
Bye.
We're glad to be here. See you. Bye.